Hi, this is Dave from Priority Bicycles, and today we're going to assemble your new Priority Embark. We hope you love the new Embark as much as we do. Now, before we get started, it's important to know that we always recommend that a professional bicycle mechanic assemble your bike, or if you choose home assembly, to have a professional bicycle mechanic safety check it before you get started. Now, if you have a phone on you, grab a photo of the box label on the side. There's a lot of important information here, like the serial number of your bike and the serial number of your lock. That's good to keep for later. Now let's open the box, remove the bike and the accessories. While you can lift the bike right out, it is about 50 pounds. So we recommend putting the box on its side and pulling the bike out. It's a little bit easier on your back. Now let's go ahead and use a pair of diagonal cutters to remove all of the protective packaging. Once the bike's unpacked, let's take a look at the contents. You should have your seat and seat post, battery in box, charger, accessory box, front fender, and front wheel. Let's start by unpackaging the accessory box. You should have your front brake rotor, manuals, pedal set, kickstand, US plug for your charger, reflectors with some bolts and a wrench, an Allen and Torx wrench set, keys for your lock. If your bike came with this additional cable, it's not used for this installation and you can throw it away. While we're here, let's lay out all of our tools. You should see a Torx wrench. This will be used for your front brake. And then a 3, 4, 5, and 6 millimeter Allen wrench. In the other bag, you're going to find a rear reflector, a front reflector, an 8 and 10 combo wrench. We're going to use that for the front light and fender, a front fender bolt with 1, 2, 3 washers, a nut, and 2 Allen bolts. You'll find 6 brake rotor bolts. Now, let's go ahead and open up your charger. Remove the charger from the box and plug in the US wall adapter. Remove the piece of plastic from the adapter. You can now move on and open up your battery box. Now's a good time to fully charge your battery. You'll be able to see the battery status on the right-hand side. My battery has 2 bars. And plug in the charger to begin charging. We recommend using your bike once the battery's been fully charged. Now's a good time to review the owner's manuals that come with your bike in their entirety. We recommend reviewing them before assembly and riding. The Bosch owner's manual is available online. Now let's start by installing the rear kickstand. I'm going to grab the kickstand and my 5 millimeter Allen wrench. Remove the kickstand from the bag and the 2 Allen bolts. You'll want to place each Allen bolt through the plate in the frame and then install the kickstand behind the plate. It might help if you push the kickstand back, watch out for your fingers, and use the long end of the Allen wrench to tighten. And with the kickstand tight, we're going to now move on to installing the front wheel. We're going to start by installing the disc rotor on the front wheel. To do that, we're going to grab the front wheel, the Torx wrench, the disc rotor, and the 6 disc rotor bolts. Remove the protective packaging off both sides of the front wheel. Put the wheel down so that the disc rotor side is facing up. Grab your disc rotor. You'll notice there's two sides, one that says Tektro with arrows and one that's blank. With the Tektro side facing up, put the rotor onto the hub. Now using your Torx wrench and Torx bolts, begin to loosely install each bolt. You're going to loosely install the bolts in a star-like pattern, and we're going to repeat tightening steps in a star-like pattern. Make sure that each bolt is tight enough that the wrench leaves an indentation in your palm. Keep going in the star pattern until all bolts are properly tightened. Now, using our 4mm wrench, let's install the handlebars onto the stem. Start by holding the fork in place. This means that the brake should be on the non-drive side. The front brake should be lined up with the rear brake facing backwards. Holding the fork in place, try and turn the stem around. If you cannot, use your 4mm Allen wrench to loosen the pinch bolts on both sides. You may need to remove the top rubber cap and use your 5mm Allen wrench to slightly loosen the top cap. Holding the fork in place so that the brake stays on the non-drive side, rotate the stem forward. Tighten the top cap so that it's only finger tight. Then, tighten the stem pinch bolts. We'll come back and adjust the headset later and then replace the rubber cap. Using your 4mm Allen, remove the top faceplate from the stem. With the faceplate removed, grab the handlebars and twist them appropriately around the bike and into the stem. When twisted appropriately, you'll see the front brake wire going straight down to the back of the front fork leg. You'll see the rear brake cable and shifter cables coming from the right side, swooping cleanly to the left side. With the cables in place, install the faceplate. Make sure your handlebars are centered and tighten the bolts in a star pattern. With the handlebars in place, let's move to installing the front wheel. You're going to start by removing the through axle. Make sure and read the warning label that's on the through axle. Remove the pull tab from the brake caliper. After removing the through axle, grab a clean rag. We want to clean off the through axle and make sure that no debris has entered the threads of the through axle before reinserting. Similarly, clean off both sides of the fork, the threaded and non-threaded side, to ensure no debris is entered during the removal of the through axle. If you have a dab of grease at home, put it on the through axle before reinserting. Now, making sure the brake rotor is on the side of the brake caliper, lift up the bike and install the wheel, ensuring that the disc rotor goes between the caliper pads and the wheel fits nicely into the through axle dropouts. Once installed and centered, screw in your through axle. As you're screwing in the through axle, if you feel any resistance, back it out and re-clean the through axle and fork threads. Proper tightness on the through axle is when you feel resistance closing at 50% and it takes your whole palm to finish closing. With the lever closed and running parallel with the fork, let's now put the kickstand down. You'll notice the kickstand has an adjustable leg that can be tightened using your 4mm wrench. Put the bike at its desired height and tighten the kickstand. Now let's move on to the rear fender and dropouts. Grab your 5mm Allen wrench and loosen each bolt. Take the bolt and washer, put them through the fender strut, and tighten. Same thing on the other side. If your bike does not have bolts installed in the accessory hole, use your 4mm wrench to install them. And repeat for the other side. Now let's move to the front fender and light. Remove the packaging around the front light. And place it on the front tire. Grab your long bolt and one washer and install the washer. Put the bolt and washer through the front of the headlight, making sure the cables are coming off the gear cables here nicely, and install them through the front fork. Now, take your front fender and slide it through the fork, ensuring that the tab goes onto the bolt. Grab one more washer and the locking nut and loosely tighten. Grab your 5mm Allen wrench and install the struts. With the struts installed, grab your 5mm Allen wrench and your 10mm open-end wrench. Place the light in its desired position and tighten. As you get near tight, make sure and push the fender up. You will need to use both wrenches at the same time to achieve proper tightness. It's now a good idea to use the 3mm Allen wrench and affix your light in its desired position. With your light properly tightened, both here and here, make sure that there's no fender or disc brake rubbing. Now, let's insert your seat post. Grab your seat and seat post and make sure that your quick release lever is in the open position. Insert your seat and close the quick release lever. Note that when you get to about the halfway point, you meet resistance. My example here, it's too loose. So I'm going to tighten the nut side until I get resistance at the halfway point, about right there. It should take a full palm with another one holding the seat to properly close. With the seat post tightened, let's move on to the pedals. Now let's go ahead and install the pedals. To install the pedals, you're going to need your 6mm Allen wrench and your 2 pedals. After you've unpacked both pedals, you'll notice on one side of the axle there's a CMR and a CML. The R stands for right, the L stands for left. Go ahead and place the right pedal on the drive side crank arm. If you have a dab of grease at home, it's a good idea to put a dab of grease on the pedal threads. With the pedal in, stick the wrench in and turn always towards the front of the bike, which in this case is turning the wrench counterclockwise. I'm going to turn the wrench counterclockwise until I get the pedal nice and tight. You should get the pedal tight enough that you need to hold the other crank arm with one hand and that the wrench flexes, leaving an indentation in your palm. Now, let's move on to the left side. For the left side, I'm going to do the same process. Stick the pedal with a dab of grease, if you have it, on the crank arm. Stick the wrench through the hole in the crank arm and turn towards the front of the bike. This time, we're turning clockwise instead of counterclockwise. Again, you always turn towards the front of the bike. And once tight, I'm going to hold one crank with one side, the wrench with another, and tighten until the wrench flexes, leaving an indentation in my palm. With the pedals tightened, we're going to now put on our reflectors. Using a household screwdriver, install the front or white reflector onto the handlebars. Same process with the rear reflector onto the seat post. With your battery fully charged, let's install your battery. You're going to want to make sure this clips in tight and install it at an angle. Make sure you get a good clicking sound. You shouldn't be able to remove the battery. In order to remove the battery, you'll need to use the keys that came with the bike. The keys insert here to remove the battery. And again, the battery needs to be clicked in place. Now, let's review the bike for tightness. Make sure that your stem is straight and pointing forward and that your handlebars are at the correct angle. See if your headset's too tight or too loose. If the headset's too tight, when you lift up the bike, it will be difficult to turn. If your headset's too loose, when you grab the front brake, you'll feel a knocking as you rock the bike back and forth. To tighten or loosen the headset, simply loosen the stem pinch bolts and then either tighten or loosen the top cap. You do not want this too tight or it will be difficult to turn and put too much load on your bearings. Once the headset's at the proper tightness, tighten the pinch bolts and put your black rubber cap on the top bolt. Ensure now that every bolt on the bike is tight. The bolts we touched today and the bolts we didn't touch today. Make sure that your brakes are not rubbing, that your fenders are not rubbing, and that the bike is safe to ride. Do have a professional bicycle mechanic safety check the bike before you start riding. Quickly, let's go over your Purion display. You can remove the plastic cover, but we do recommend saving it for future instruction. To turn the Purion on, press the top button. If you go to turn on your Purion and the system's not turning on, don't worry. There's another on-off button down here on the battery. Turn on the bike here, and as the lights come on, you should see your Purion light up. Turning off the bike is as easy as pressing the button here. If your Purion power button is not working, you need new batteries for your Purion. Simply email us and we'll send them with easy instructions. Then, to start your different modes, you can press the up button to cycle through Eco, Tour, Sport, and Turbo. And then your minus button to cycle back to off. If you hold down the plus button, your front and rear lights will turn on. To turn off the lights, again, hold down the plus button. And to turn off the Purion, press the top button as well. We're really proud of the new Priority Embark. We love the new journeys it's been taking us on. We hope you love your Embark as much as we do. If you have any questions, we're here to help. Our contact information is on screen. We're often fastest to respond by text and email. Thanks so much for your support of Priority.